Today we're going to talk about
demonic.
That doesn't work with Baby Yoda on my shirt. What is up, Burke fans? Welcome back to my channel. Neill Blomkamp has a new movie. It just came out. It's called Demonic. We're going to talk about it in this video. I need you guys down below. Did you enjoy this film? And how do you feel about it? Let's get into it. So a young woman unleashes terrifying demons when supernatural forces at the root of a decades-old rift between mother and daughter are ruthlessly revealed. Neill Blomkamp of Chappie, District 9 Elysium fame, and obviously District 9 is a movie of note because that was an awards caliber film, and I completely agree with the reception. I loved that movie. Wasn't as high on Elysium and Chappie, but I don't know if I hated those films as much as other people. I like the style of Neill Blomkamp for the most part, and I appreciate his attempts at sci-fi when he goes for it. Now, when you look at this movie, this is much more in the horror genre, and it feels like an idea or an amalgamation of ideas that tried to come together to create this cohesive experience that didn't fully form at the end of the day, even though within a few of the ideas showcased here, there's something there. Right, and not necessarily the performances, not necessarily the visual style of this movie, but the concept of this girl going back to have a conversation with her mother at the beginning of this film after she has this very odd dream, and she's contacted by her old ally that knows where her mother has been for years. Now, there is a very violent past when it comes to her mother, and the reason as to why she left her behind, there was a series of violent actions that, even though it's someone very close to her, it would be hard to forgive anyone for what she did, right? So, her friend Martin claims to have seen her mother Angela at this hospital where she has been laying in a coma. So, Carly, played by Carly Pope, sets out to investigate and discovers that there are two individuals there, and they're very interested in Angela and her daughter, and they have this very odd way set up for people to go into the dreams of these coma patients, and they tell Carly, go ahead and talk to your mother, have a conversation there. And that's when Carly learns, well, that she's not alone when she is in the dreamscape, is what they call it. And this was very interesting because what Blomkamp does here is he has these sequences in the movie that are created with what he calls volumetric capture, which is described as this 3D video system where actors are recorded with like 250 plus cameras and then turned into geometry. Basically, it's the visual style that you see in those scenes. And essentially what this movie is doing is it's trying to compensate for its very lackluster story with an interesting visual style when you go into this dream world. And it's funny because I just watched Reminiscence where you're exploring memories, and now in this movie you're exploring dreams. I feel like I should go watch Inception to complete the trio. But then Carly realizes that maybe her mother is the one that needs saving, and maybe everything that happened in the past was set up for a reason, and thus you have the title Demonic that leads us into more scary and creepy territory. And I will fully admit there are a couple of visual elements here, not necessarily when they're in this 3D style world. That was fine, right? But I just wasn't invested in the story. But when we come back into real life, say there's a moment where she's talking to someone, I won't say who, at least she believes that's a person, and then that person turns into this demonic creature and kind of contorts the body and runs at her, and I thought that was very creepy, right? So Neill has a very, I say Neill like I know him, hello Neill, has a very distinct vision in mind for this film, and a title like Demonic tells you there's going to be scary moments, and that moment was terrifying. But the problem is, I wasn't invested in the story at all because the film feels directionless, and that sounds really harsh because I know Blomkamp can do it. I've seen it before, but it feels like Carly Pope doesn't necessarily know what situation she's in, even though it's fairly obvious, because her emotions often don't match what she's trying to do in the movie, and thus it creates an awkward performance, and I don't know who to blame. I don't know if I should blame her for the performance, or I don't know if I should blame the direction for not really giving her an idea as to what to convey in that particular moment. So that was a big problem in the film for me. And then you have this story that just drags on. And when I say drags, I mean she's going from place to place. And sometimes it's live action, sometimes it's this 3D style. But again, it feels like the style is trying to make up for the lack of substance. There's just not much to this movie that's interesting until it starts to go off the rails. But that's what it's doing. It's going off the rails, and it starts throwing everything at us. And some of those ideas are cool in theory, like this dreamscape. Then you have enter the Vatican and this religious organization and using technology to battle ancient evil. That's right. Doesn't feel that way at first. And I won't say who converts into these characters, but everyone is not as they seem. And things really go crazy. When that started happening, I'm like, whoa. This is not what we were just watching. Well, thank goodness something's happening, finally, but it didn't really come together to create something that felt interesting, right? It feels like he has all of these ideas, but instead of creating 3 different films, he created one movie, and that movie is this wild experience that doesn't feel as passionate as it should, right? With all of these ideas coming together, there should be a sense of maybe not urgency, but something that compels and conveys exactly what the movie is going for, and it never does that. And we're just kind of trudging along through most of the, you like that? You like these movements? Trudging along through most of the movie. And I didn't really care about any of the performances. I mean, I thought this, organization that enters a little bit later in the movie was cool, but their role feels unimportant at times. And then it really does come down to the relationship between Carly and her mother, Angela. And that was interesting, but it doesn't really go anywhere. And when they confront each other, there's not compelling dialogue to suck you in. And this movie just feels like a big miss at the end of the day. And it's such a shame, too, because there's a lot here to work with. Like I said, the scene where the demon comes into real life was really interesting. And those were the moments where I genuinely got scared because of the visuals. And then we go into this 3D animated world, and it just doesn't really match up. I couldn't really take it seriously compared to those moments that I enjoyed. And then the rest of the film is Carly going from location to location, cut to the Vatican warriors, and how those 2 storylines didn't necessarily match up, and I just didn't feel the passion in this film, and that's really unfortunate. So it didn't necessarily come together for me. I guess I can use the word ambitious, but it almost feels like it's giving it too much credit. So before I give you guys my score, I want to say thank you so much for watching. Did you enjoy this film more than I did? And if you like this review, be sure to drop your thumbs up down below. Demonic is a combination of ideas that come together and create an incohesive and somewhat bland experience. It's not without a few good practical effects, but the rest of the visuals are distracting. My score is a 32% for Demonic. It just didn't quite work for me, even though I'm interested to see what he does as a director. Horror may not be the genre. I know we were supposed to get that Alien reboot from him some time ago, and I'm just not entirely sure, but I do want to see more. Maybe tackle something different, but we'll just have to see where it goes. Thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate it big time. More to come. See you soon.